So your warehouse is full. The warehouse manager is all over you. They're having to work hard at replenishments or bringing product down from the reserves and overfilling all those pick locations just to make room for all the pallets that are scheduled to come in today. And then you have merchandising calling every 10 minutes trying to bring in just one more trailer, saying just let me get one more load on the schedule. And of course, the forklift drivers are asking you, have you lost your mind? And all the while, everyone's forgotten that you actually have no control, absolutely zero to say as to what loads are going to be taken or that come across the dock today. Well, welcome to the world of an inbound dispatcher or scheduler. I'm Marty with Warehouse and Operations as a Career, and today let's talk about that role for a little bit. It was pointed out by a couple of people that we've mentioned the position a couple of times, but we've never given the proper warnings to run from the position itself. Eric and Catherine shared their stories, really their frustrations with us, so I thought I'd share my story as well. Now, I loved my time at the window, and it being the position that drives all of our freight coming into the facility, you'd think it's a pretty simple task, right? I mean, you simply take phone calls for inbound appointments, schedule them on a first-come basis until that day's time slots and pallet counts are full, and then switch over to the next day and start scheduling it, on and on until that week's full. And in theory, that's the job description. However, every industry I'm familiar with has its busy season. Those few months where merchandising builds up inventory levels to match the outbound needs of their customers. And then we can see those buy-ins. Maybe a vendor has a sale on a line of paper goods or disposables, so our procurement teams buy up to save on the cost of goods. And that's kind of a point I've never really understood. From a simple ops perspective, ops being expense-driven, if we save a nickel on a case on the purchase, yet the warehouse has to handle that case additional times, store it in a bigger slot, or have to move that pallet 3 more times, how does anyone state that we've saved money? Merchandising saved money. The company spent the same or more on that buy-in. Anyway, all that's a whole show on its own. Where was I on today's topic? Our warehouse is going to occasionally reach max capacity, and no operations plan is going to keep it from happening. Nothing I've ever seen anyway. And it's understandable, really. Merchandising and procurement works off of sales figures, which are forecasts from our customer base and trending histories. We need to have inventory to meet the customer's needs. You know, October, November, December may be the peak season for a lot of the items that we carry. January, February, and March, they may hardly move at all. So those departments are, of course, demanding. That's a little harsh. I'll say encouraging us or nudging us to get their loads on a fully scheduled day. It's important to remember, though, they've already placed those orders and purchased those loads. It's coming. The driver is on the road with it already. We may have a day or so that we can work with it, but a driver is expecting to get unloaded and heading out to pick up another load somewhere else. We simply have to make it happen. I overheard a facilities manager telling a VP of operations last week how, he had a 8 a.m., a 9 a.m., and a 10 o'clock appointment. All 3 were like 15 miles apart. And the VP told him that's why we're in ops. We can make miracles happen. Anyway, where was I again? I was pointing out merchandising is just doing their jobs. Every department has an agenda that they have to follow. In the examples we just spoke of, there may be very little they could have done differently. And then, of course, we have the warehouse managers asking us what the heck we're doing scheduling so many cases and pallets. Many times they're being pushed just as hard by their bosses to get in special loads throughout the day as well. We're at the window because we love that kind of pressure. You have to be good at it. And yes, we do have to make miracles happen occasionally. And thank goodness our operations teams usually have our backs. Our unloaders, receivers, put-away teams always step up on those days to make the impossible happen. So I got involved as an inbound dispatcher by really volunteering as the backup. I was friends with the full-time scheduler, and he definitely made the job look easy. It was going to pay me a little bit more, very little bit more I'd like to add, just to fill in if he got super busy or needed a day off. So I figured, number one, I could learn something new, and number two, I'd be making a little more each hour. And all that worked out really well for the first month. I was trained well. I got to cover for his lunches and breaks. Pretty much a great gig for me. Until my friend found a new job and just up and quit one day. My agreed-to backup position turned into a full-blown, full-time job for the next 2 years. Now, of course, me being me, I immediately found a backup and started training her that very same week. The inbound dispatch position, let's look at a few of their duties, I guess. Our job descriptions may go something like, usually a first shift position, and we'll be there early every day. I used to come in an hour before the warehouse shift to start checking in the inbound drivers. There'd be a line of tractor trailers lined up on the street upon my arrival each morning. As drivers would arrive throughout the night, they'd just park behind one another. It'd be a mad rush to the window once I sat down and turned on the light. I never really understood all that pandemonium. We worked off of a schedule. Although I could check in anybody, I was assigning doors to the 5 a.m. wave. If I knew you had an 11 a.m., I'd check you in, but it'd be a rare occurrence that I'd be able to help you out at the 5 a.m. window. Oh, and this is kind of off topic again, but it was funny how many bribes were offered to me. Everything from lunches or product like steaks and appetizers for the house to outright cash. Everyone wants to get unloaded and get back on the road. That's how they make their money. Don't ever take a bribe like that. Be ethical at all times. That $100 or case of T-bone steaks is never going to be worth your yearly salary. Now, I'd get everybody checked in and assigned to the doors, that were in that first wave. If a 5 a.m. didn't show, I'd give his door to, the next one in line for the next wave. I was working at a fairly large facility. We ran about 50 doors between the dry, cooler, and freezer areas, so I'd have to really stay on top of when a door was finished being worked or was open so I could get another driver into it immediately. Working with about 120 inbound loads, one could figure that alone as a full-time job. But while all that's going on, we'll need to be taking those phone calls to schedule loads for the rest of the week. I worked off of a 2-week schedule. I'd accept appointments like 14 days out. Now, some facilities, especially if they have a strong logistics department, may have someone else that'll schedule most of the inbound for us. Now that takes the calls away from us, but also removes a little bit more of any perceived control of the case counts and pallet counts that we don't really control in the first place from us. We'll also need to be taking payments from the drivers if our company does not utilize a third party for unloading. If we're fortunate enough not to have to mess with that, count your blessings. Most drivers pay with an electronic check, and there's several companies out there, and our facility will have an account with quite a bit of them, if not most of them. All that is really time-consuming, though. It can take 5 minutes per check, and heaven forbid mispunching one single digit because you have to start all over again. If your facility accepts credit or debit cards, that's great, but with the fees associated with them, I don't hear of many places making that switch just yet. I mentioned a little earlier how our warehouse teams have our backs and can pull off miracles for us. Typically, we'll have a hard number of cases and pallets to schedule to. That number is based on what our receivers can physically get received and our forklift operators can get put away within the shift. If our company or our product line, I guess I should say, can hold to that hard line, anybody could do and enjoy the position of inbound dispatcher. But in my experiences, that's just not going to happen. People have to take off. Receivers, forklift operators, and drivers are going to get held up. Reschedules are a frequent occurrence. Weather delays are common, and merchandising is going to have those loads they just have to get in. The job is challenging, but can be very rewarding as well. One of the great things about the position is we get to touch so many other tasks and departments. We'll be working closely with our operations management teams, inventory control, the receivers and forklift operators, almost everyone in every position in the warehouse. We also will be working side by side the merchandising team, their logistics people. I know 2 people that left the position of inbound dispatch and moved into sales. Several have gone from the warehouse into merchandising. One close friend of mine, my first backup at that position, is now the VP of merchandising for a clothing company. I parlayed my 2 years at the window to move into inventory control, the warehouse side of it, and then on to being a receiver. I think it's a great position to have under our belt or have a little experience with. Just the organizational skills alone that we'll develop will help us throughout our careers. I think I learned most of the customer service skills I possess today from that position. Learning how to walk a driver off the ledge that's been lied to by everybody concerning the load he or she is carrying and help resolve their concerns definitely taught me a lot. And learning how to work with merchandising and being the referee for operations was priceless down the road. Bottom line, I'd encourage you to accept the position if it's offered, even volunteer if you have a chance. It's going to challenge you. You're going to have some frustrating days, but you'll learn from it, and more likely you'll love it. Well, that's it for today. I shared a few more of my opinions. I'm supposed to say experiences, I guess. And I hope I answered a few questions or thoughts about that position for Eric and Catherine. If you have a topic or comment you'd like to give me, just send me an email to host@warehouseandoperationsasacareer.com and we'll get back with you. Until next week, please be ethical and safe in all that you do.